Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watch You Want, and thanks for logging on. Now, oftentimes the two driving trends of modern horology, the modern luxury watch segment, are high horology, the haut-de-gamme, the fine finish, the artisanal, and the contemporary appetite for oversized sports watches. And those have been the twin pillars of the luxury watch, mechanical watch movement really since the 1980s when the resurrection began. But what if there were a watch that combined these two threads of horological trends? I think you know where I'm going with this, and you're looking at the Roger Dubuis Easy Diver, 46mm in stainless steel, one of 888 made. This is one of the only watches that is going to combine Geneva Seal standards of fit, finish, and materials quality with sports watch versatility in the modern, oversized paradigm. Water resistant to 300 meters with a unidirectional dive bezel and carbon fiber accents. Big as anything from Hublot or Audemars Piguet, it nevertheless contains the same artisanal level of finish that you would find on something like a Vacheron or an F.P. Journe. This is a watch that spares no expense and cuts no corners to deliver the best of all possible worlds. And if you like the giant, oversized, intense, extrovert, extravagant, and expressive sports watch look, you're going to love this one because, in a sense, this is the watch that has it all. So let's put it on the wrist. Let's talk about where this watch comes from, where it sits in the modern luxury watch pantheon, and its significance to luxury watch history, especially that of the Roger Dubuis manufacturer. Now on the wrist, my wrist is 6 1/3 inches, 16 centimeters in circumference. You can see that it wears like a big sports watch. Now the lugs are large, they're generously flared, they feature a conforming strap that actually segues into the case form via an intermediate woven carbon fiber insert, both on the flanks of the lugs themselves. You can see right next to the screws that retain the strap, there's a carbon fiber insert, and then on the lug tops as well. Really, the way it's integrated into the strap reads the same way any sports watch with conforming end links like a Rolex or an Omega or a Breitling would. And I can say that it wears true to size. It's rated a 46. It feels every millimeter of that, and it looks every millimeter of it. This is a watch that can easily, from a visual standpoint, hold its own with the likes of an Audemars Piguet Royal Oak Offshore 44mm or an Hublot King Power at 48mm. Moreover, this is a good counterpoint to the Panerai Luminor 1950 case in its 47mm iteration. It's a big watch, no question, but it is nicely balanced. The strap is substantial. Being natural vulcanized rubber, it's also very supple, and even though it's a conforming end, and I like to say sometimes a conforming strap that's seamless and pressed against the lug will add virtual size by wanting to flare out, this watch doesn't really have that. Now, it can be cut specifically to suit the size of the end user. This strap retains most of its original length, so more than likely, unless you have a truly huge green giant type of wrist, you're probably going to want to have this one sized by our watchmaker. It's easier to go down, it's hard to go up. Fortunately, this watch retains just about all of the factory strap. Now, the other nice thing about the watch in terms of wrist presence is that when you look at it from overhead, and I want to emphasize from overhead, it's just about as broad at the crown guards as it is long at the lugs. So it sits with a nice squat sports watch stance that distributes the mass nicely, and there are really no pressure points or hot spots. I'll give you a little glance of the shape of the case back. You can see it's nice and flat, and here's a good profile shot. The watch really sits nice and flat, and no part of it creates a pressure point that's going to dig into your skin. And you can see on my wrist, if you did want to wear this with some sort of a long sleeve, for all of its size, it doesn't wear that thick. It's only about as thick as, I would say, something like a Radiomir in the 1940 case, a automatic winding Luminor in the 1950 case. It sits far flatter and more flush to the wrist than any Hublot, except maybe the Classic Fusion, and certainly any Audemars Piguet Royal Oak Offshore. It's more comparable to something like a Royal Oak, the original Royal Oak chronograph, in terms of its stance on the wrist. Doesn't flare up too high, very dress cuff compatible, long sleeve friendly, and I want to point that out. For all the watch's size, it is quite flat. Now, looking at the dial, you can see one of the highlights of the watch. It is a true sports watch aesthetic. Applied indexes, you can see from 12 all the way around, everything is heavily loomed, so the watch glows like a torch at night with a combination of red luminova on the hands and traditional sort of key lime luminova on the applied indices. There is calibration 0 to 60 on the hour track itself, or a little bit outboard of the hour track on the minute track. And you can see that there's also a unidirectional rotating bezel, itself calibrated to 60, with high polish and a gorgeous detent action. I say gorgeous, I'm speaking in visual terms for something that's more of a feel and a sound, but it is very satisfying. It's the kind of thing you expect from an upscale dive watch. This is the very top of the scale, and believe me, it feels it, it sounds it. If I were to nitpick slightly, I would say that I would like to have some sort of distinct marker or glowing pearl index at 60, so I could truly use the watch's bezel in low light conditions. But for something that's already this well marked, this well lit, this visible, this distinct, I'm not going to dock it too many points. I'm not going to give it too many demerits. It's maybe one weakness in this watch's tool watch arsenal, but in every other respect, with 300-meter water resistant, superb legibility, and one of the best bezels in the business, this Easy Diver is already way ahead of the curve. And it jumps further ahead of the curve when you look at the quality of this deployant clasp. Before we jump into the movement, I want to talk about some of the fit and finish of the associated fittings of the case. The strap, which as you can see is not just pleated to allow a little bit of extra bend, it's also tapered from top to bottom. So you can see lengthwise it actually grows thinner as it moves toward the back, heavily braced along the sides to hold it in place. It thins out so that it can contour to the softer underside of the wrist, and then perforated right here to allow micro adjustment within the clasp. There's a lot of intelligent design going on here, and you can even see the little indentations and the grooves built into the bottom with the company marquee, yes, but also to allow a little bit of breathing, to allow moisture to escape from the wrist and evacuate from the skin. Intelligent, thoughtful, everything you expect of a top-of-the-line watch manufacturer from an haut-de-gamme house, and really much appreciated. Whether on a sports watch or a formal reference, the ability to allow your wrist to breathe is really invaluable if you're going to be living in hot weather. Down here in Miami, this is the kind of thing that brings, a smile to my face and warms my heart. Now, the clasp itself is of outstanding quality. You can see the recurring RD, RD, RD motif within the clasp, and then a twin trigger release right here allows absolute security. You can see every aspect of this is either engraved or polished. Nothing is left untreated. Nothing is left as unfinished metal. Really very solid, emblematic of the quality Roger Dubuis brings to its watches. A true Geneva manufacturer. That's not even the highlight. The highlight is inside the case with what's known as the RD14 movement. Now, I'll say that in the mid-2000s, Roger Dubuis made the jump from a fine finisher, principally of Lemania Aboches, to a true manufacturer building its own movements in-house, and the RD14 is part of that. Automatic winding with unidirectional winding for high efficiency, and maintenance-free, unlubricated ceramic rotor bearings, again for efficiency and longevity. This is a true Geneva Seal movement. The Poincon de Geneve is right here on one of the going train cocks, and then you can see the balance cock itself features a gorgeous black polished swan's neck regulator, mirror finish, and yet because it is so optically smooth, poly noir or black polish is the highest standard of finish in the luxury watch industry. It only reflects light in one direction, so it transitions between blindingly brilliant and apparently black or a dark gray as you shift it through the light. Circular Geneva waves or Cote de Geneve on the bridges and on the base plate. There's a tight perlage pattern that you can see through the balance wheel. All of the screw heads are brilliantly polished to that poly noir standard. Their edges are beveled and their slots are chamfered. Everything about this movement is what you would expect from a dress watch priced well into the 5 figures. If you've seen the finish of something like a Vacheron Constantin Patrimony Traditionnel, that's what you're getting here, only you're getting it in something that's 300 meters water resistant with an aggressive, full-figured sports watch style. Beautiful attention to detail outside and in. You have a gorgeous contrast brushed, for instance, brushed and sandblasted bezel. On the flanks you see a combination of polishing on the case tops and a sort of vertical graining, a brushed finish on the side, as well as these carbon fiber inserts and rock solid screwed strap retainers, not spring pins here, only the best. It's a little more expensive, but again, it's emblematic of a sports watch finished to a top-of-the-line haut-de-gamme standard. This is high horology, but how low can you go? Apparently 300 meters. It is the best of both worlds. This is a dive watch that's not afraid to mix it up with the dress watches, and it's got the credentials to match. Since 1995, when it was founded by Roger Dubuis and his business partner Carlos Ruiz, Roger Dubuis, now owned by Richemont, has been one of the really pioneers of the independent watchmaking movement. He's back with his company, and he started an independent streak within the Roger Dubuis manufacturer that lives on to this day. And that spirit is embodied in the Roger Dubuis Easy Diver offered by WatchYouWant.com. This watch, which features 100% original Roger Dubuis accessories, is one of only 888 manufactured in the limited series. See it with all original manufacturer accessories on our website, Watch You Want.